This is my 98 Toyota Altezza that I use for drifting. Before I hit the track again, I'm doing some mods to it, and in this episode I'll be cutting some weight. This is my FRP trunk lid. Now there are a few realities we need to talk about with this. It isn't in fantastic shape. I don't think it was built very well. These are very expensive when they are available, but they're quite rare. This one has had a GT wing on it, and then over time with heat, as you can see, this is a low point here. Different colors and things you can see across here are different heights. This is higher than this area here, so it's not flat. I want this trunk lid because it's lighter than the OEM one, but the reality is that I'm not going to be able to get it to be as nice as an OEM one because it's all bumpy and horrible. I could spend days and weeks sanding it, using body filler and whatever else to fix it to make it better, but that's just going to add weight and that defeats the purpose of what we're going for here. Yes, it's going to be rough, but I'm willing to live with it. I hope you are too. The goal here is to repair the holes, couple of pieces of damage, and prime it and paint it. And a lot of this for a few hours. If you're trying to get something flat, you want the biggest block you can get. So this is just a piece of wood with sandpaper stretched across it. But when I put it down, if there's any low spot, it'll be missed because the end pieces will touch the high spots along the way, if you know what I mean. So if you have access to something like this, it's not hard to make. You just waste a lot of paper. Doing this will help get things flat, if that's your goal. Got to make it worse to make it better, unfortunately. To me, this actually looks like there was like a pinhole here and someone tried to repair it using only body filler and it just didn't work. So we made that way worse than it was, but I was just following the damage. This is what we've ended up with. I'm gonna fill the whole thing up full of fiberglass and then sand it back again. Basically an air bubble that when they sanded it, it's gone right through. Then they've tried to put body filler on it and it hasn't filled all of the bubble. So you end up like, if you sand too much, then you pop through in a different spot. You're better just to grind the whole lot off like that. Now, if you were to body fill that, it'd be fine. But I'll try and do it with fiberglass just because. Now the beauty of fiberglass is you don't have to get it all right in one sitting. You can come back to it. So if you don't mix up enough resin or whatever, you just mix up some more after this is dry and you go again. You're gonna need some acetone before you start, and you're probably gonna need some while you're going as well. So it's always good, like I'm almost out. I'm tempted to go get another tin before I begin because this stuff's important. One of the main things you need it for is cleaning. You want to make sure that this area is totally clean before you start messing around with fiberglass. The other thing you can use acetone for is cleaning brushes. I tend not to do that because the brush is never the same after you've used fiberglass on it anyway, so I just cut my losses and use a new brush. I can't stress this enough, be prepped. Fiberglass isn't like super glue, it doesn't go off straight away. You have to put your matting and your resin on there and it can fall off. So having masking tape handy to hold everything in place is a very good practice. Chop more matting than you think you're going to need, because if you need more, you don't want to be cutting up matting with resin on your fingers, and trust me, you will get resin on your fingers. It's like anti-seize. You know it's going to get everywhere before you even open the tube. Not too. Okay, so we've gone a little bit over, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some and then brush it into the holes. I'm going to be pretty liberal with it. Fill the area with matting and then just dab that until it's in place and saturated. Rinse and repeat until you've completely filled the hole. I like to go a little bit overboard. And this is what we've ended up with for round one. You know me, I like doing everything by hand. This is what we've ended up with in here. Admittedly, I haven't done a very good job, but it's okay. Because it's fiberglass, we can just go again. As you can see, my repair has left the edge a bit wobbly, so all we need to do here is use our block. The high spot will be worn down and we'll be left with a nice straight edge. And with the magic of editing, the 4 other rounds of fiberglass are complete and all the major repairs are done. Spraying some of this primer surfacer on. Now, this thing was covered in pinholes, so I put on some of this glazing putty. That's a good view of what we were trying to get rid of. And these hard to reach places I'll do by hand. Give it a quick wipe down with some silicone off to get rid of any oil from my hands or whatever. Hit it with some air to dry it off. Shake the crap out of your primer. Now I know what you might be thinking, geez, you put a lot on that coat. Yeah, I don't actually care if it runs because I'm going to sand it again anyway. And I can already see that there's some imperfections here that still weren't fixed by the fine putty. So this is actually a primer surfacer. The surfacer is like a spray putty, so it will fill small gaps. Probably not gaps that big, but I mean, if I can create a run or whatever in the correct place, that might help. I want to take this off because I want to weigh the thing. There's no point putting an FRP trunk lid on if this one's the same weight or even close to the same weight as that. This one's more durable. It's probably in better condition. It's not wavy. So if the weight difference isn't that great, I'll just keep this. Plus this has got the lights in the back that one doesn't have. That's a signature Altezza thing. That thing's probably dumb rare, but I'm not going for rare, I'm going for lightweight. Just need to remove the locking mechanism and all the trimmings to make the weigh-in fair. Be careful with these things, they're a bit tricky to get off. I ended up using one of these because it helps you break the seal, which was either double-sided foam tape or single-sided foam tape that has managed to weld itself onto the metal. Oh, that's a lot heavier than I expected. Like the FRP boot lid I thought was heavy, but taking that thing off, that's a lot heavier. We're gonna find out how heavy. That is 8.43 kilos. And the FRP boot lid is 4.89 kilos, making this a 3.54 kilo weight reduction. Look at the funny way they spelled Altezza here. I got the camera on because if I drop this, I want it documented of how mental I can go. That's tight. Rid of this. Yeet. That is going to spring up to the moon. And after all of that, it's finally time to paint Altezza black. Pretty much how I thought it was going to turn out. There's a lot of junk in this paint, and when I mean junk, I mean like lint and... oh yeah, there's one of Ted's hairs there. I could wet the ground, but I have to get on the ground to do this other stuff that I'm working on. So I can't really do any better than this here. I could take it to a spray booth, but once the car's dirty, I don't think you're going to be able to see this anyway, and you probably can't see it on camera. Some people would argue that being good enough on camera is good enough. I'm just happy it's black finally. What looks worse, this or this? We're progressing and this is good.